So welcome here to another minimalism video. This time we are talking all things makeup brushes. I'm going to be chatting about the 8 makeup brushes I have in my collection and what I use them for. So I have 4 powders in my minimalist makeup collection, and I have 2 brushes for each of those powders. And per powder, one of the brushes would be much larger like this, and one would be much smaller like this. The large ones would be used for larger areas of my face, like my cheeks and my forehead, and the smaller ones would be used for smaller areas of my face, like my eye areas or the tip of my nose. So without further ado, let's get into the brushes themselves. The first 2 that I have to talk about correspond with my powder, and this large one is the MAC 135S. Setting powder is the item in my makeup collection that goes over the largest surface area on my face. I'll use it across my whole forehead, sometimes right by my jawline, and multiple other areas of the face from time to time. So that is why I have switched to using the biggest, fluffiest brush that I have in my collection, because it just takes 2 seconds to put on my setting powder wherever I want. Now that being said, there are other smaller areas of the face that I also put setting powder consistently. One of the most common areas being my eyelids, and that is where I use my MAC 224. So this one is actually an eyeshadow brush, but I just use it to deposit a little bit of setting powder on my eyelids all the way up on my brow bone as well, so that my makeup look on my eyes is not going to budge. So these 2 brushes, large and small, correspond with my 1 setting powder. So as I mentioned, setting powder goes over the largest surface area. Next up would be blush. When I wear powder blush, I actually like it to go over, quite a large area on my cheekbone. I will put some up on my temple, maybe even a little on my forehead, and I wear some on the brow bone as well, which is why my next 2 biggest brushes to talk about correspond with my blush. So when I'm putting blush on a larger area of my face, like my cheeks, I will go in with my MAC 129. It's a fairly large, fluffy blending brush as well, and I just think it does a good job at getting a nice diffused look on the face. And if I'm going in with my blush but sticking to the eye area, I will use my MAC 217. I use my blush, bronzer, and highlight as kind of eyeshadows as well, so this is the system that works for me. So with the setting powder, I would have gone up almost to my eyebrow and just set the entire eyelid and brow bone. With the 217 and my blush, I tend to stick to just the brow bone and connect it back to the powder that I have on my temple and cheek. So as far as the eye area goes, it's a fairly large area, so I have a fairly large brush. It's the MAC 217, and it works just perfectly for me. So those were my 2 brushes that correspond with my blush, and next up is bronzer. So I concentrate my bronzer in a much smaller area than my blush. I find that that tends to look good on me, and that is why I have the 3rd biggest brushes in my collection. If I was putting bronzer, on my cheekbone, which again is a little bit of a smaller area, or somewhere on my forehead or temple, I would use this brush, my MAC 116. This is very similar to the brush that we just talked about with my blush, but it's a little bit smaller, so it works better for bronzer on me. Alternatively, if I was going in with bronzer on my eyelids, I would go in with my MAC 239S, so I can use it in more precise areas of my eyelid. And in fact, I actually very commonly wear bronzer in the crease. This brush being a little bit denser tends to work well for that. I can also flip it around. It's a packing brush, so I can also flip it around and go over my whole eyelid, but I tend to stick to bronzer, like I said, in the crease. So this brush is perfect for the eyes. This brush is perfect for the face for my bronzer. So if you were keeping count, we are on the final powder with 2 corresponding brushes, 1 smaller and 1 larger. I use highlighter in an even smaller area than I do bronzer, so that's why they are the smallest in my collection. If I am going to go in with highlight, on my face, it's probably going to be the tops of my cheekbone and a little bit on my temple, and that is where I would use the MAC 133. It's again a simple fluffy blending brush, but it's much smaller than the other ones that I talked about, and does a way better job at staying fairly concentrated on just the tops of my cheekbones. Now, if I'm using highlighter for smaller areas of the face, I will go in with this teeny tiny little brush, my MAC 223S. So on my eyes, I put highlighter on my eyelids, sometimes my inner corner. I'll put it under my brow bone, sometimes on my nose and on my Cupid's bow. And this brush, whether I use it flat or thin, works absolutely perfectly for all of those areas. So those were my two smallest brushes, well, my smallest face brush and my smallest eye brush that correspond with my highlight, and that means that is it. Those were the 8 makeup brushes that I have in my collection. So again, I have 4 powders, 2 makeup brushes each, and the smaller the surface area on my face that I want the product to go, the smaller the brushes themselves. And that, my friends, is how we came to 8 brushes in my minimalist collection. And on the one hand, I feel like you could see this as a fairly large collection because I have a dedicated blush, bronzer, highlight, and setting powder. I actually have quite a few brushes, plus I have them ×2 because I like smaller brushes for smaller areas of the face. And yet I do find this brush collection, even though it could be seen as slightly larger, as still extremely intentional because I use every single brush in this collection and they fit into a broader system. I don't know if you've noticed, but a few of my makeup declutter videos have also included tools. And almost every one, I swear, I end up decluttering brushes. That is because I wasn't necessarily intentional about the brushes that I was bringing in, and I certainly didn't have a system for them whatsoever. Now I keep things so simplified. If it's a powder, they get brushes. If it's anything with a doe foot applicator, anything cream or liquid like concealer or this blush, it just gets blended out with my fingers. I find that that is the superior blending method anyways for these sorts of products. So that is how I curated this brush collection, and I'm really happy with where it is now because this is an area in my broader makeup collection that has been in disarray. It's been in chaos for years, I swear. So I feel like I finally got it locked down. It makes sense for me. And of course, this isn't to say, again, that you need to have the exact same system as I do. You might wear foundation, so you need a foundation brush. You might like sponges for your foundation or concealer. I don't prefer that method of application. You might like really intricate eye looks, so you have a lot more eyeshadow brushes. You might find that just having one cheek brush for multiple products is perfectly sufficient for you. So this video, of course, is meant to give you ideas if you are looking to minimize your brush collection or build out your brush collection, but it certainly is not a blueprint for everyone's lives. The overarching theme, as with the rest of the videos here on my channel, is to remain very intentional about the things that you do bring into your life. And if you're ready for it, to potentially let go of some things that aren't serving you, that aren't bringing you joy. So my brush collection now brings me a lot of joy. It's no longer an area of confusion for me when it comes to my makeup. I love how streamlined the process is now, just putting on my powders. So if you happen to like this makeup tool video, then feel free to give it a like. If you like me, if you like the content that I'm producing here on my channel, this minimalism content, then definitely consider subscribing. It would truly mean the world to me. All right, everyone, well, just thank you so much for being here, and I really hope to catch you in my next video. Bye for now, everyone. Bye.